Watcha! You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs, where today's guest is Martin Noble, founding member and guitarist of Sea Power, whose new album, Everything Was Forever, is out now. But we're not here to talk about that. Though the excellent album it is, we're here to talk about what he's got up to when he's not been making records or going on tour. That's the premise of 101 Part-Time Jobs. I interview people about the different sideline hustles they've had and ways they've been able to survive doing what they love doing. This episode is supported by 2000 Trees Festival, taking place from the 6th to the 9th of July in Cheltenham, just a few hours away from London. Idols, Jimmy Eat World, Thrice and Turnstile will be headlining the festival. It's the winner of the big medium-sized festival at the UK Festival Awards previously, if you didn't already know that. And their latest announcement is just another thwack of amazing bands. Me-Rex, Violent Hearts, Mannequin Pussy, Heavy Lungs, Nova Twins, Boston Manor, Island of Love, one of my new favourite bands, also playing. If you're planning to go but haven't yet taken the plunge, you can get 10% off your ticket by using 101pod as a voucher code on their website 2000treesfestival.co.uk/tickets. I worked that out to be around 20 quid. So what can 20 quid buy you? I know, that's almost the price of a copy of Everything Was Forever by Sea Power. You can get that record now. Go to your local record store, go online and find it through the band's website or their Bandcamp. So here he is, Martin Noble of Sea Power, who are on tour in the UK for the rest of the month. Go and find a date near you. Cheers for listening. Starting off as a band, it's just about playing gigs, is it?
Yeah, get out there. And Rough Trade were always sending us out as well because they knew that playing live was one of our strengths.
Right.
And we'd kind of tend to make a bit of a scene back then. I think it was pretty bonkers. So they were just like, yeah, let's get them out there and see what the world makes of them.
I've read about those shows, and you know, it's almost hard to imagine sometimes, because I guess with nowadays when there's a band or a group or an artist where the shows are nuts, you kind of see it straight away online or your phone. Yeah. You know, I think there's that mythology, or you know, that those kind of rumors that you hear.
Yeah, I think if things went online as quickly as they do now, back then. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would have shaped things really, whether it would have driven us to do more, or or we've gone, bloody hell, is that what we're like?
Yeah.
You know, it brings a bit of self-consciousness to it, but those days you just did what you did and didn't think anything about it, you know?
This is a podcast about part-time jobs and about basically making it work, you know?
Yeah.
And as much as it's like about a financial thing, I think it's about like an identity thing, about how much you can prioritize your art, you know, over what, you know, I suppose it has to be said, as cliche as it sounds, like what people at school tell you, or what your siblings might tell you, you know, your older siblings or your parents, you know. And I think that's such an interesting element. I mean, at that period of time, was it your priority? Was making this art your priority?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, just before I go on, I don't know if you know this song by a band called the Nude Party. What's the name of the song? But it's all about being in a band and then all their family and people saying, "Oh, you know, one day you're gonna wish you'd got a job." And it's like you never. The chorus is like, "You're never gonna make enough money. No one cares about the things you say." It's really funny. It's brilliant. Check it out. Anyway,
I will.
Back to where we were. So yeah, it was like I met Jan at university. Basically, I think we'd both gone there with the aim to form a band. We sort of met each other outside a lecture. We were both late. And that first year, I failed all my exams, and then sort of I managed to claw it back and finished it. And Jan dropped out halfway through. You know, we were always dreaming of being in bands. And yeah, we moved to Brighton like sort of 2000. And Jan and Hamilton went to live with their brother. So then they just were on the dole. It was sort of like it was a scheme back then. I can't remember what it was. I worked anyway. I never could take the dole.
Was that an ethical choice?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, I just thought you got to work to earn your money. But maybe it's stupid because they were all at home writing songs, and I was working for a year.
I don't think either side is wrong. I think if you're in that time, I mean, maybe people, maybe you've worked for 10 years and then you thought, fuck it, I'm going to go on the dole now because that didn't do me any good, or maybe you've been on the dole and you're like, fuck it, no, I think you sort of use your own experiences. It's the only thing you can do.
And back then it was a scheme. So you were encouraged to do, if you're into arts and stuff like that, they were sort of encouraged to do that. So it was good back then, wasn't it? They could do it. And they spent time writing songs and kind of kickstarted the band.
I wonder if maybe that's the thing, is that if you can, you can quote on, go on the dole and risk being called a scrounger or what have you. But if you're spending your time making something worth it,
and then you get it's all paid back to the big kitty. Yeah, we pay our dues back. So it's good.
Pay our taxes. What kind of jobs were you working back then? I mean, have you got a few stories or things that come to mind?
The first, I say at university, me and Jan worked in the kitchens in the washing up department, and we met this guy called Jeff Goddard, who it turned out over time that he wrote songs with Joe Meek, which was incredible. He had #1 hits. Sort of in the 60s, and he'd ended up just potwashing, and he was really interested that we were in a band. He came to a couple of shows, but he was really interested also in what we were doing at university, and he'd just be making up songs, like banging colanders and pans and stuff, and so that was great. There was loads of Thai women. There was this massive, like, you wouldn't mess with her, called Ufa. She was brilliant. So it was kind of a weird environment, loads of Thai women, and then this genius songwriter from the 60s. So the year when we moved to Brighton, I did a year at NTL back then, which is a kind of, they did TV and phone stuff, and I was in the faults department. So all the time, just people moaning at you, it's not working, blah, blah. And I remember one really bad. Someone phoned up, and the first thing basically you say is switch it on and off, switch it off and on again.
Surprisingly works.
It does, yeah. And this guy had been gone for ages. And he came back totally out of breath, and I was just like, are you all right? Yeah, he goes, yeah, I just had to get out of my wheelchair, and then it was really hard to get to the back of the TV. And it's like, oh my God.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, good on him.
Yeah, good on him. I was like, God, if you'd have told me that, I'd have just got somebody out to see you.
Yeah. That must. How old were you then? Early 20s.
So, yeah, early mid 20s then, I think. But one thing I do remember from that is 9/11, because we had the TV screens all around the building, and it happened. All the phone lines went quiet, and you could see it on the TV, and those two memories are sort of my biggest memories at that time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their. I mean, that must have been nuts, because if anywhere with TVs, for me, it was in the shopping centre, and there was lots of TVs then. And then, I mean, wow, being surrounded by TVs, that must have been a real experience of that day.
Yeah, it just seemed, because there were constantly calls after calls. There was always a massive backlog of calls, and it just went silent.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow. I mean, I wonder how that was as an early 20s year. I mean, you're old enough there to be, living your own life, traveling alone, that kind of thing. Did that day have a impact on you? In that kind of sense?
It did everybody. Yeah, I mean, it massively affected everyone. It was everyone got massively into just trying to understand how the hell that happened, didn't they? And the aftermath.
I remember the video footage of the news being in different countries, being in Afghanistan and Iraq, and showing people celebrating. That's what I remember from that day, and it's so fascinating to think about now.
how the rest of the world sees other parts of the world.
That's it. And like, that's our one TV, we got like 3 outlets of that. We got 3 news outlets that are going to be sort of showing us what they're going to be showing us. That's all we know about it.
Yeah. So it's good. Like, started to watch a bit more like Russia Today and Al Jazeera TV and stuff like that to get a bit more of a balanced view.
Al Jazeera was the one, wasn't it? So, I mean, when Rough Trade got interested, was that like a vindication of pushing towards this focus on arts, of writing music, playing music?
Yeah. I mean, we'd been doing this club night we did it once a month. When you're in that frame of mind, you just kind of think it's inevitable in a way. You don't believe that it's not going to not happen. So, yeah, and it was always sort of building. You'd done your sort of first self-release single. I remember giving that to people at work, and they were all, afterwards they told me, they said, "Oh yeah, we just thought, oh, look at him with his local band, and he's made a CD, isn't that nice?"
That's brave of you to give it out at work.
Yeah, well, there was a few people into music. Yeah, not our kind of music, but
Yeah. So it was, I mean, that's the thing. I often think back to school. I mean, I would never tell people at school that I played in a band for fear of rejection, I suppose, or bullying or something. But you look back and, I work at Soho Radio now, and I love working there, and it's, very much a community-based station. And when we have young people in and they're really confident, you can see, you're going to go far. And I think there is a great line between being modest and being cool, but being confident and being like, no, this is what I want. This is what I like. This is what I'm going to do.
You can see it in some people, can't you? Just like, wow, yeah.
Totally. And I wonder if a lot of artists and young bands like sort of feel that, when they're going to a job they don't really like, that sort of, you can see how that's pushing down and down on someone's forehead, thumbing in someone's forehead, being like, nah, mate,
Yeah. But it kind of for me, it was, that impetus to, right, I don't want to do this job. I need to really focus on doing the art side of things. And that really gave me a good push. And so sort of since we started, none of us have had any jobs per se. It's only sort of within the last 4 years that we've kind of looked to get extra income. And we've, it's been modest earnings for the last sort of 20 years. But then we've just thought, the full album cycle, you do the album, you tour, and then there's that big fallow period. And you're like thinking, I could actually, earn some money and try and get you treat yourself now and again.
Yeah, and especially if there's something that you like, maybe there's like a venue opening up in town or a cinema, or I don't know, there are countless examples of those small independent businesses that we do get in the UK.
So I work sort of part-time at the Brighton Dome. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
So I do audio stuff there.
Great. Recording, like live sort of engineering.
Yeah, so it's from anything, setting up days, doing the live audio, and then they've got a festival, so they have loads of sort of theatre stuff. Yeah, we get like dance, theatre, bands, obviously, comedians coming in. So it's really varied. It's kind of cool, especially to see it from that side of a show. I've really enjoyed that.
Has it given you a new way to kind of enjoy it? I imagine being in a band and working so hard and self-managing and, self-tour managing and driving everything. I mean, there's so much energy that comes out of that. And I wonder if sometimes that can impede on, the way you see the group as a whole, or its music at least. Being on the other side of that, has that given you kind of a new perception about how artists and bands and comedians, how they kind of portray themselves and what the kind of the show is, what the theatre of it is?
Yeah, definitely. It's given me an appreciation for everybody who works there, which, maybe you didn't have quite that appreciation before. And seeing loads of different people come through, and the likes of, you get Joanna Lumley in, who she was absolutely amazing, says hello to everybody, and you get a few few grumpy people through. So it's kind of makes you think how to conduct yourself, you know. And then if I'm doing monitors for a band on stage, I kind of remember how I would feel. So we'll sort of take real care and make sure that they're really comfortable on stage and everything's good for them. So yeah, I really enjoy that. And it feels like I'm stepping back from doing shows, but I'm still involved in the in it. Yeah.
Do you feel more of a fan?
I think so. Like, I'd never went to so many shows. You know, maybe when we first started, and I was going to loads of gigs, and then there was a period where I just couldn't be bothered because I just wanted to stay out of a venue. But yeah, I've seen loads of great stuff, and from like Nick Cave and Mogwai, and seeing how they put a show together, it's just.
When I think about Nick Cave and Mogwai, I think how many like their kind of peers that they had with Mogwai. Obviously, like there's that kind of Scottish, Orange Juice, and then Teenage Fan Club, that kind of punk alternative scene. Did Sea Power? Did you have any kind of like mentors, as it were, or friends that kind of showed you how to be a band in a way that works for you?
So the older brother of Jan and Hamilton, Roy, he manages us for the first couple of records, and he was a big influence on them as they were growing up. He's probably like 15, 20 years older than them, I think. I can't quite remember. So he had like Fall records and Pixies records and stuff that as young kids that you wouldn't probably be listening to. So he kind of is a mentor in a way. But I think we just sort of doing our club nights and having our heroes, like watching Iggy Pop. You're just like, yeah, this is a guy who's just taking the bull by the horns, and he doesn't give a monkeys. And he just gave us back in those days, gave us the encouragement that we could just do that kind of stuff.
Doing your club night, I mean, being in charge of the books and the accounting.
Yeah, we didn't sort of run it like that. We were given the venue once a month. And we got paid bugger all for it. And we just pay a support band. We didn't take anything from the bar or anything like that. It was fairly basic in terms of organisation. I think that sort of helped create our spirit and our own kind of unique way of doing things. I could do a little bit of work at the BIM, the music schools, and you see people coming through that, and they get. It's kind of great. If somebody offered me to go to university to do music, I'd be like, that's great, brilliant. But the sort of unique character that comes out from doing it all yourself, I think it's maybe lost a bit of those schools, and I kind of fear for it in that way. They learn a lot of great stuff, but I feel like, that you wouldn't get Marquis Smith coming out of BIM, would you? You know what I mean?
You wouldn't get like a Mo Tucker style drummer coming out of BIM.
Nah.
I feel like, having not gone to university for music, I'm kind of, uninformed to say, but I feel like there's a lot, across life, not just music, is, you learn by fucking up. You learn by making mistakes, and you make mistakes by doing it, realizing what went well and what went not well, and learning, right?
And forming your own kind of bubble, your own world where you shut everything else out, and the people involved in it just sort of mutates and becomes this thing, and then you're a band. You know what I mean?
Those are the best bands that make their own worlds. Did you know that you were doing it? Was there a time that you? I mean, I feel like not lazy journalism, but a kind of a way to put it in a headline is to say cult band, but that's just for me as a fan, that's just a word to say this band has its own world, and it's not in the red tops necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the bands that we like are all like that, so I think it's just maybe an aspirational thing, and you reject everything that's not like that. it just sort of happens. I don't think anyone plans that kind of thing, do they?
I wonder if say if record labels is obviously a big one, but maybe interviews. I know you turned down interviews to talk about the name change. To me, there was a very obvious thing why you change your name. Doesn't really need to be slogged. The point,
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's one of the things that makes you more in your own world, because you say, no, I'm going to turn down those GB News or whatever Good Morning programs.
Yeah, and they're all media savvy, really good at talking on TV, and you just know that they kind of crucify you in a way. And Jan was thinking, oh, I should just go on with a clown outfit, and every time he asked me a question, honk a horn. And they were like, brilliant. That would have been brilliant. I'm not sure if they would have let us on, but that's the best way we could have dealt with that.
Did you see in New Zealand a few months ago? There's a law. I think it's here in the UK as well, that if you're getting called in at work by your job and you know that it's going to be a quite serious meeting, that it's within your rights to bring like an emotional support person. This fella in New Zealand took a clown. And so when they really like pulled the trigger on you're going to be let go, he's got his friend like Bonnie to do the talking.
Oh, glad you're here, mate.
Finally, a real friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it is those decisions that put you in that world. I mean, have there been any other decisions that you can remember in your history that maybe you turned down something because it something quite big maybe, where it just didn't feel right? Because there's that massive overlap of alternative music and mainstream, right? And I feel like as a fan, I live in the middle. I haven't really had to choose between, but I imagine artists do have to choose.
We never got into a position where like a band would do an advert maybe 20 years ago, and then they'd lose a lot of respect for selling out, you know what I mean? And nowadays people sort of think it's okay because it's everyone knows that Spotify and streaming services don't pay much, so it's like they need to make money, so fair enough. There's not the same sort of selling out vibes anymore. So yeah, we've done, I don't think we've done anything like Coca-Cola or McDonald's or anything like that, but if we've been on a celebrity TV show or something, it's just like, oh, we heard you on that. That's rather than they've sold out.
Did you have many friends, any kind of peers, I suppose, or bands that you were playing with or touring with or found yourself around that you're kind of like learning together?
Yeah, no, right at the start, there were a few bands coming out of Brighton, like the 80s Matchbox, Beeline Disaster, Electric Soft Parade, Electrolane, Clear Lake. There's quite a lot of bands, just sort of playing in venues. As a sort of felt like there was a bit of a scene going on, and so we were all kind of learning from each other, and do shows together. They were good times.
Getting into making soundtracks, looking at music looking at being in a band or composing, I suppose. I guess my first question is, was that like a real, were you using a different set of skills, using a different part of your brain when you were writing for film or writing soundtracks as opposed to Sea Power Records?
I think it's kind of always been there, even from the first record. There's always been textural parts to the songs. And it was only sort of after the second record where we did our first soundtrack. It was for Edinburgh Film Festival, and that was sort of a midway between a bit gentler instrumental stuff. So some of them were a little bit song based, and we'd rework some of our old songs and B-sides to fit it. But we sort of developed those sort of studio techniques and along the way. So I think when we got to do like the Disco Elysium soundtrack, we could do it, and it was a great outlet. So we have these different bodies of work, and we go, well, finally we can use all this for the soundtrack. We didn't feel like we had to do anything in any different way. Robert, who wrote the game, he was a massive fan, and he was just picking out bits from songs and, I'd like a bit that's a little bit like this. And it was kind of even the messy bits or like distortion and atmospheric. So it was great to have somebody who knew our music so well, more than us even. He was, they're all Estonian. So he flew over to convince us to do this game. And all it was back then was just like about 10 drawings of the world. And then he just described it all. And we just like, this guy's a madman. Yeah, but we like doing this kind of stuff. He's obviously a fan. So we sent him a load of atmospheric pieces that we had, and he picked out the ones which to him suited the world the most. And yeah, just took it from there. It was just a leap of faith. And Robert had such conviction that he said it's going to be the best fucking game ever.
And there was a budget. Like, he had a budget, did he?
Yeah,
from his bosses,
Yeah, and it wasn't loads. It was fairly modest budget up front, so it wasn't like we were doing it for the money. It was kind of an opportunity to do this kind of music. And as I said, he'd pinpointed the kind of things he wanted, and that really excited us. It was a great chance, and it kind of gave us a little cut on every time they sold a game, or every time they sold the soundtrack. Then we got a little cut on that. So we did all right in the end. But yeah, up front we were just like, we're just taking a punt here. And we like this guy. Yeah, he's a real character. He's got so many ideas. He's really, really clever.
Yeah. And just to end, everything was forever over this time working at Brighton Dome. I guess this is such a classic question, so call me an idiot. But, does it feel like a totally different record to what you've made before? Having those outside, your own life, I suppose, on a very personal level.
Yeah.
Does it feel different?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing before I worked at the Dome, that every decision that was made within the band was like really crucial, and it would, you might get a bit worked up about things, but when you have a little bit more of your own freedom, and I think everybody does now, that you can kind of let these things go a little bit, and things are just a little bit easier to deal with because you're not relying on, one thing being your future, and every decision can affect your life. And it's nice for everyone to have a bit more of their own freedom.
I mean, if there's something that you'd like to do, or a production that you'd really like to work on at the Dome or any other venue in the world, are there any things that you've seen and you thought, fuck yeah, like I can really imagine working on the audio or any other side, of the production?
There's so the Dome is one of the sort of a 5G test bed. So there's a few of them around the country, and they've got this 5G festival coming up. But so people are playing in different parts of the country, and it's all synced up, and it kind of looks cool. But they've got this surround. There's about 15-20 speakers surrounding the auditorium, and then some up front. So you can basically have any instrument in any of the speakers, and you can just click on a mouse and move an instrument all the way around the speakers, and it will go around. And you can link that up to where you put on the VR goggles, and you can do all that stuff. And at the moment they're just using bands, but I can imagine somebody like some electronic artist like Aphex Twin or something using that to mind-blowing levels. So I'd love to see something like that happen, and it probably will somewhere.
I mean, John Hopkins has kind of pushed the envelope a little bit further just in the last few months.
What's he done?
Music for psychedelic therapy, and it was recorded in some caves, in some Ecuadorian caves. And he kind of went down there with a field recorder. And
I got into him fairly recently. Again, he played at the Dome, and he was the last show before the full lockdown that I saw. And it was, it was that was very moving. Everyone knew it was going to be shut down. There's this pandemic, and it did have the sort of end of days feel. But yeah, I didn't realise how sort of popular he was in the kind of left field. But yeah, great on him for doing that. That's a genius idea, and I really want to hear that.
Your identity is as a musician, is it as an artist? You know,
yeah.
You've come to peace with that. I mean, has that been a journey in the last sort of decade and longer?
Yeah, for me, I've kind of, you know, you look at people who you can call yourself an artist, but I've never kind of wanted to do that. I kind of just like to think I'm me and I do this kind of stuff. I don't want to feel like self-important about it, if you know what I mean.
Totally. Martin, thank you so much for being up for this.
That's all right, yeah.
So there was Martin Noble of Sea Power on tour for the rest of the month around the UK. You can find those dates on such websites as seapower.com. Wait, let me search that. Seapower.com? Nope, they haven't reserved that. Seapowerband.com. There we go. Seapowerband.com for those dates. Their new album, Everything Was Forever, is out now. Cheers for listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. Here is Sparrer.
I've been working all day for me mate on the side, running around like a blue-ass fly. I've been working all day for me mate. Every bleeding minute I've been on the go, up and down the ladder like a fiddler's elbow. I've been working all day for me mate.
This is a Mighty Moon Media podcast.